feel more free to share that? It would demystify a lot of it?
Well, I'm joined in the studio now with Elina. Elina is 18 and studies film and television at the London Screen Academy. Now, she was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was 8 years old. And I really wanted to get an understanding of the effect that has had on her life. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So have you taken time out from studying to come in today?
Yes, I have. I'm actually currently directing my second short film.
Wow.
So I've kind of left my co-director at school to carry on with the pre-production. But we go into production tomorrow.
Right.
And it's a 5-day shoot.
Blimey.
But yeah.
Sorry to the team is what I'm going to say. But it's an important reason that you're here. And I promise once our chat is done, you can get right back into film mode. And I know there's a lot of work that gets into that. Can I firstly talk to you, Elina? So I was saying in my introduction, you were diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 8 years old. Do you remember much of that time in your life, or do you remember the first time that you can go back to a seizure that you had?
Yeah, so I grew up having absent seizures, and it went undiagnosed until the age of 8. And I'd be getting multiple absent seizures every single day at school, and I'd be getting around 10 to 15 absent seizures at school, at home, and I was being made fun of like at school, and then even to the point where my family were like thinking, what is this habit? You know, they just didn't know what it was.
So when you say absent seizures, what does that mean?
It was essentially, absent seizures is essentially a brief relapse where your eyes just roll up and then you forget what you're saying.
Okay.
And then you come back into conversation, but you're very confused after that.
Right.
So essentially that is what an absent seizure is. And I would be getting that daily, and it's also a little bit of memory loss between that as well. So I'd be getting that daily. And then essentially after that, just before I turned 9, I'd had this massive tonic-clonic seizure. And then that's when they confirmed that I had epilepsy. And so the time that I had the tonic-clonic seizure, I think I come out of like this hot shower, and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to go to my grandma's house, and my mum was going to take me because she was going into work that day.
Yeah.
And then I was getting ready, and then all of a sudden she just hears this thud on the floor. And I don't remember anything. All I remember was just waking up and my brother having ice packs on me and just stroking my arm. And then all I remember was what happened, you know. And I was on the floor to like on the bed. And then I went downstairs. I was so confused, so out of it. I couldn't even eat. I just kept on throwing up. And that's another trigger after you've had a seizure. One of the triggers I get is I tend to throw up quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was very tired. Obviously my mum at this point, she knew something was off, so she took me straight to A&E. And then when I was in A&E, they said, look, we're going to refer you to a consultant. And that is the most I've ever slept in an entire day. I think I slept for 14 hours that day.
Really?
Yes.
The body just kind of, just a young child.
Yeah,
I was going through so much.
Yeah.
Do you remember at that young age when the doctors, when your mum, when your family were explaining to you that you had epilepsy? Do you kind of have much grasp of that period of time?
I remember sitting in the room, and I remember having the absent seizure in the room. And then that's when they diagnosed me with it.
Oh, really?
So I was in the room, and so this was 3 months after I've had the tonic-clonic, and now we're going to see the consultant. And so I'm with my parents, and we've gone to go and see this consultant, and we're just talking about all the seizure, this big seizure I've just had. And I'm in this room, and I'm talking away like I normally do. And then I had this absent seizure. And then after I've had the absent seizure, come back and I'm a bit confused. And then she then confirmed that I had epilepsy. I had no idea what it was. I'd never experienced what epilepsy was. I'd never even heard of it. I mean, as an 8-year-old, would you even heard of it?
Absolutely.
My parents knew what it was because my mum works in the NHS, and my dad, I think his grandmother's sister had it. But I didn't know what it was. And then after that, being diagnosed with it, it was a very rough experience of not knowing what epilepsy was. Because how does a parent navigate it? If your child doesn't know how to navigate it, how do the parents navigate it? you know, because you're leaning on them, right?
And also this point that you made earlier on, the way in which it affects you as a young child being at school. I mean, did you at that point, because you were saying earlier you used to get made fun of with the absent seizures. What was it like when you finally knew, okay, this is the condition you have, you were living with epilepsy? Did you feel confident enough to share it, you know, when you went to secondary school? What was that journey like for you, Elina?
It was horrible. It was really horrible.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I remember coming on the medication at first, and I was in year 5 at the time, and I was sitting
so young.
I was sitting my entrance exams, and if I add up the amount of days that I missed between year 5 and year 6, I missed a whole entire year. And I was sleeping during lessons. They had a special mat for me to sleep during class because my body was getting used to the new medication. My parents were having to come pick me up every other day. You know, it was horrible. And then I moved to secondary school, and that's when the side effects started to kick in. Because then also, don't forget, I'm a woman, hormonal changes are happening. Yeah. You know, and I was getting increased anxiety. The side effects started kicking in. I was nervous that no one knew what epilepsy was. I was nervous I was going to get a seizure in school. I was nervous that no one's going to know about it. I was very, very, very anxious. I didn't know how my friends were going to react to it. I didn't even know if I could make friends, because what if they just ran away? Because that's what it felt like in primary school. It really felt like that. And I felt very lost and very, very alone. And that is a lot to handle. And it was very sad to see my parents see that.
Do you know, the picture you paint, it's just so stark, and my heart goes out to you. But you've come out of the other end of this as an 18-year-old young woman who's now studying film and television. Your eyes lit up when you said, Shay, I'm working on my second short film. I'm in the middle of co-directing. I've got a lot of things to do. How do you come out the other end of that? You know, when you've gone through so much trauma, and clearly it is anxiety inducing, everything that you've had to go through, and the physical pain, but also the mental pain and anguish that you have experienced. How have you managed to come out the other end?
I found my passion, and oddly enough, I found it during lockdown. I started creating these lockdown diary videos, and I just became obsessed with it. And then I was like, I want to pursue this. And then once I set my mind to it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. I found me. And I just kept on going and kept on going and kept on going. And I didn't give up. Every video, every family event, I'd be there recording. Every funny thing that my brother would be doing with my mum, I'd be recording. And then I found a film school up in London Screen Academy. And I joined there. And I've been part of like a family there. We've been working on so many films there. And it's been amazing.
How confident do you now feel about telling new friends that you meet about your epilepsy? What has that part of your journey been like for you, Elina?
It's been really good. Oddly enough, when I got to my new school, it took me around a month to tell one of my closest friends now, who I'm co-directing this film with, that I had epilepsy. But the best thing that she said back to me was, well, can you educate me about it? And so every single time I tell someone about epilepsy now, that I have epilepsy now, I always think back to my friend Kathleen, who literally said, can you educate me about it? And I think on the other side of it, someone could literally be like Kathleen and say, educate me about it.
Is that what you would like people to know? Because unfortunately, there still is such a stigma around epilepsy. Yeah. There are those that suffer in silence, you know, and don't tell anyone about their epilepsy.
There is a lot of silence that is had with epilepsy. And actually, the film that I am creating is actually advocating towards people who have epilepsy and focusing on the hardships. And our main character stays silent. She doesn't expose it to any of her friends. And that's why we're advocating it towards epilepsy on behalf of people who live with epilepsy. But the silence is very rough, and no person who has epilepsy should have to go through that alone. And raising awareness like today, Purple Day, is really important for the epilepsy community, for myself, and to everyone listening, and schools, employers, everyone really.
What would you want to say to a parent who's listening right now, who's glued to the radio because, you know, they are on the epilepsy journey with their child? What would you want a parent to know, perhaps, to get an understanding? Because, you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing. And as you've already clearly articulated, and what a talented young woman you are, that at that young age, there was so much anxiety on your part, and you could sense that from your parents too. So as a young 18-year-old woman now, perhaps there's something you could say that may well just be a point of conversation for a parent with their child who has epilepsy.
I'd say don't give up and keep pushing, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. And another thing is, I posted this up on my Instagram story today, but use your epilepsy as a superpower. And over time you'll become a superhero, because like all superheroes, when they first get their powers, they have no idea how to use them. And then once over time they get used to using them, they know how to use it, they've embraced it. And that's exactly what epilepsy did for me. Over time, I had no idea how to use it, and I was so against it. But then after a certain amount of time period went by, I got used to it and I just embraced it. I gave up on living against it. So use it to be a superpower, but it will just take time.
So beautifully put, Elina. And I think actually more than ever we need to highlight stories like yourself, and on how, yes, isolating this experience can be, but clearly for you it's become liberating in now, as you said, to kind of get to that point in life where you can accept it. I guess my final question, the fact that you're talking about studying at London Screen Academy, you know, there'll be people living in different parts of the country and their experience of epilepsy will be different because of where they live. I just would like to know context for you when you're getting on the tube, when you're in a busy, hustling, bussy city like London, you know, and everyone is so busy doing their thing. We're so densely populated. There's so much going on. How has, you know, studying, living in London impacted your life living with epilepsy?
So I moved out of my parents' house to live in London to go to film school because I was so determined to go into the film industry.
Okay.
Moving around, going on tubes was a massive, big step for me. And I've had seizures on tubes. Yeah.
What has that been like?
It's been scary. It's been scary, and I would be out for 2-3 minutes on a tube having a long absent seizure, and then I'd be waking up and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Did anyone help you?
No one knew, because you're on a tube. Who knows? No one knows on the tube what I'm having, and that I'm having a seizure, and that's scary, right? And then I've had seizures on trains going back up to London, because I go back to my parents' house every week. And the reason why I moved out of my parents' house to live in London was because of my epilepsy, because the commute would have tired my body out. And if you know that with epilepsy you need your rest, and if you don't get enough rest, that will trigger more seizures.
I see.
So that's why I essentially moved to London, to help with my epilepsy. But obviously moving around on the tubes and the buses, I don't tend to use buses quite a lot, but the tubes, yeah.
I guess some people might just be thinking, you know, I wouldn't know what to do when somebody's having a seizure. Is part of it for all of us to educate ourselves?
100%. I feel like more people need to be educated about it. Teachers need to be educated about it. It needs to be spoken about in schools. Employers at work need to be educated about it. I did a form, and a lot of people at work are requesting that they need to be educated about it at work, in the workplace. And it needs to be brought up, like diabetes, autism, ADHD. Those are all common things that are brought up in schools. But epilepsy needs to be brought up, because there are a lot of kids out there who have it, and it needs to be raised awareness about.
Elina, you are just a fantastic young woman. I'd love to follow the journey. Will you come back and talk about your film, please?
Of course I will.
I look forward to that. How do people find details for you on Instagram?
Yes, so you can follow us at The Barrier Official for our film. We are also up on YouTube and TikTok as well.
Of course you are.
Yeah. And our film premieres on the 2nd of July and tickets are free and they go out on the 5th of May.
Amazing. A real pleasure having you here, Elina. Thank you for sharing your journey with us today. If you would like some support as well, as we are talking about epilepsy, and a big thanks again to epilepsy.org.uk. There's an array of information, a lot of support being provided as it is Purple Day today. Right, apologies, Billy, let's get up.